Last night, Clint Eastwood's interview with Jimmy Kimmel exploded into a fiery clash after the legendary actor promoting his gritty new film shuts down Kimmel's jokes, demanding respect. Tensions soar as Eastwood storms the stage, leaving the audience stunned and divided. The studio lights burned hot, the crowd buzzing with anticipation, as Jimmy Kimmel leaned back in his chair, flashing that signature grin. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Clint Eastwood." The audience erupted, feet stomping, hands clapping, as the 94-year-old icon strode out, his steely gaze cutting through the room like a knife. Dressed in a sharp blazer, his weathered face carried the weight of decades in Hollywood. And tonight, he was here to talk about his latest film, The Long Shadow, a raw, unflinching drama about veterans grappling with the cost of war. The energy was electric, but something felt off, like a storm brewing just out of sight. Kimmel, ever the showman, started with his usual charm. "Clint, you're a legend, man. I mean, Dirty Harry, Unforgiven, and now The Long Shadow. You're still making movies at, what, 1 out of 5? The crowd laughed, but Eastwood's lips barely twitched. He leaned forward, his voice low and gravelly. "I'm here to talk about the work, Jimmy. Not my age." The audience chuckled, thinking it was part of the bit, but Kimmel's smile faltered just for a second. He recovered fast, tossing out another quip. Right, the work. So, this film, it's heavy stuff. War, loss, sacrifice. But let's lighten it up. Did you ever think about doing a rom-com? Clint Eastwood in Sleepless in Seattle? The crowd roared, but Eastwood's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "Jimmy," he said, his voice cutting through the laughter like a gunshot. "This film's about real people, veterans who've been through hell. You want to joke about that?" The room went quiet, the air thick with tension. Kimmel, caught off guard, tried to pivot. No, of course not. I just thought, the audience might want a little fun." Eastwood shook his head, leaning back in his chair, his stare unyielding. "Fun's fine, but respect comes first. For the work. For the people it's about. For this audience." A few claps broke out, then more, but others shifted uncomfortably, sensing the growing rift. Kimmel, never one to lose control of his stage, pushed forward, trying to regain the upper hand. "Okay, Clint, fair point. Let's talk The Long Shadow. It's intense, right? I heard you directed this one in, record time. What's the secret? You just yell action and everyone listens?" He grinned, expecting a laugh, but Eastwood wasn't biting. "The secret," he said, his voice slow and deliberate, "is knowing what matters. This film matters. The story matters. You don't rush that. You don't cheapen it with gags." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others glancing at Kimmel, who was starting to sweat under the spotlight. Desperate to shift the mood, Kimmel reached under his desk and pulled out a prop, a toy cowboy hat, a nod to Eastwood's westerns. "All right, Clint, let's have some fun. Try this on for old time's sake." He tossed the hat onto the desk, but Eastwood didn't flinch. He stared at it, then at Kimmel, his voice dropping to a near growl. "I'm not your circus act, Jimmy." The audience gasped, a few cheering, others booing. Kimmel's face reddened, his grin now a tight line. "Come on, Clint. It's just a bit. The fans love it." Eastwood leaned forward, his eyes locked on Kimmel's. "Fans deserve better than bits. They deserve truth." The tension was palpable. The room split, half the crowd cheering Eastwood's defiance, the other half rooting for Kimmel to bounce back. Kimmel, sensing the interview slipping away, tried one last time to steer things light. "All right, Clint, you win. No props. But let's talk Hollywood. You've seen it all. Any crazy stories from the set?" Eastwood's silence was deafening, his stare boring into Kimmel. Then, slowly, he stood, buttoning his blazer. "I came here to talk about something real. You're not interested. That's your choice." The crowd held its breath as he took a step toward the stage's edge, leaving Kimmel frozen, the cameras rolling and the internet already lighting up with clips of the showdown. What would happen next? The crowd's roar swelled, a mix of cheers and gasps, as Clint Eastwood loomed at the stage's edge, his words still hanging heavy in the air. Jimmy Kimmel, his face a mask of forced calm, leaned forward, gripping the desk. "Clint, come on, don't walk away, we're just getting started." His voice carried a desperate edge, the plea of a host watching his show unravel on live TV. Eastwood paused, one foot poised to leave, and turned back, his eyes like flint. "Started? Jimmy, you've been dodging the point since I sat down." The audience erupted again, some shouting "Clint," while others chanted "Jimmy." The divide was stark, the room crackling with raw energy. Kimmel, his jaw tight, tried to reclaim control. "Dodge? I'm not dodging. I'm giving the people what they want. Entertainment." He spread his arms, gesturing to the crowd, but Eastwood cut him off, his voice low and sharp. "You think they want this? Cheap laughs? They're smarter than that. They want substance." A wave of applause rolled through the room, but Kimmel's fans pushed back, booing, their loyalty fierce. The host seized the moment, standing now, his voice rising. "Substance? Clint, this is a talk show, not a lecture hall. People tune in to escape, not to be preached at." The crowd split again, the noise deafening, as the two men faced off, neither willing to yield. Eastwood stepped back toward the chair but didn't sit, his presence commanding. "Preaching? I'm talking about respect, for the work, for the veterans in my film, for these people." He pointed to the audience, his gaze sweeping over them. "You think they can't handle real talk?" The room exploded, some standing, clapping, others shouting for Kimmel to fight back. Kimmel, his face flushed, leaned across the desk. "Respect? I respect my audience. I respect you. But you're acting like I'm the enemy here. I'm just doing my job." Eastwood's lips curled, not quite a smile. "Your job's to sell ads, Jimmy. Mine's to tell stories that matter. Guess which one lasts." The jab landed hard and Kimmel's eyes flashed with anger. He paced behind the desk, his voice sharp. "Oh, that's rich, Clint. You think you're above this? You're on my stage, promoting your movie. You need this show as much as I do." The crowd gasped, sensing blood in the water. Eastwood's face hardened, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Need? I don't need your stage. I came here to reach people, not to play your game." The audience was on its feet now, the tension unbearable as Kimmel shot back. "My game? You're the one turning this into a war, Clint. I'm trying to keep it civil." Civil was long gone. Eastwood folded his arms, his stare unrelenting. "Civil's fine, but you don't get to trivialize what matters to me. Not my film, not the people it's for." Kimmel, sensing the crowd's split loyalties, tried a new tack, his tone softening but laced with sarcasm. "All right, Clint. You want real? Let's get real. Your film's about war, sacrifice, heavy stuff. But isn't it a bit dated? I mean, aren't we past all that tough guy patriotism?" The crowd sucked in a collective breath, the jab crossing a line. Eastwood's eyes blazed, but his voice stayed calm, deadly. "Dated? Tell that to the soldiers still fighting. Tell that to their families. You want to call them dated?" The room was chaos now, cheers and jeers colliding. Kimmel, realizing he'd misstepped, backpedaled fast. "That's not what I meant, Clint, and you know it. I'm just saying, times change. Audiences want fresh perspectives." Eastwood shook his head, his voice cutting through the noise. "Times change. Truth doesn't. And truth deserves better than your sound bites." The crowd roared, but Kimmel wasn't done. "Sound bites? You're the one grandstanding, Clint. You want respect? Earn it." Eastwood's face went still, his eyes locked on Kimmel. Then without a word he turned and walked off, the crowd exploding as he vanished into the wings, leaving Kimmel alone under the lights, the cameras still, rolling and the internet ablaze. How would Kimmel recover from this? The studio was a furnace of noise, the crowd's cheers and boos crashing like waves as Clint Eastwood's exit left a void on stage. Jimmy Kimmel stood alone, the spotlight harsh on his flushed face, his hands gripping the desk as if to anchor himself. The cameras, unforgiving, caught every flicker of unease. "Well," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't land, "that's Clint Eastwood, folks. Never a dull moment." The audience response was fractured. Some clapped, others jeered, and a few sat stunned, unsure who to back. Kimmel's eyes darted to the wings, half expecting Eastwood to return. But the legend was gone, and the host was left to salvage the wreckage of a segment gone viral for all the wrong reasons. He sat, smoothing his tie, his voice strained but steady. "All right, let's keep this moving. Clint's got his way, I've got mine. We're here to have a good time, right?" The crowd gave a tepid cheer, but the energy was off, the room still buzzing from the clash. Kimmel leaned into the camera, his grin tight. "Look, I respect Clint, always have, but this is Jimmy Kimmel Live, not a TED Talk. You come here for laughs, not sermons." A few laughs broke out, but the divide persisted. Some fans nodded, others crossed their arms, loyal to Eastwood's stand. The internet was already dissecting the moment, X posts flying with hashtags like Eastwood vs. Kimmel and Respect the Work. Backstage, the producers were in a frenzy, headsets crackling with orders to stretch the segment or cut to a clip. Kimmel, sensing the chaos, pushed on, his tone sharper now. "You know, I've been doing this a long time. I've had guests throw curveballs but walking off. That's a new one." He paused, letting the crowd murmur, then leaned forward, his voice tinged with defiance. "But you know what? This show doesn't stop. We keep going because that's what we do for you." The applause grew, his fans rallying, but the sting of Eastwood's exit lingered, and Kimmel knew it. He pivoted to the audience, trying to reclaim the room. "Let's talk about The Long Shadow, Clint's film. It's heavy, it's real, and yeah, it's important. But does that mean we can't have fun? Can't we do both?" The crowd clapped, but a voice from the back shouted, "Respect the vets, Jimmy." The room tensed again, heads turning. Kimmel's smile froze, then he nodded, raising a hand. "I hear you. I do. Veterans matter. Clint's right about that. But this is my house, and in my house, we balance things. We honor. We laugh, we connect." The crowd softened, some nodding, but the shout had rattled him, and the cameras caught it all. Determined to shift gears, Kimmel pulled out a clip from The Long Shadow, a gritty scene of a soldier's homecoming. As it played, he leaned back, hoping the film's weight would cool the room. The clip ended to strong applause, and Kimmel seized the moment. "See? That's powerful stuff. Clint's a master. But when you come on my show, you gotta meet me halfway. You don't just storm off when things get tough." The crowd murmured, some cheering, others whispering, the divide still raw. Kimmel's eyes flicked to the wings again, his voice dropping. "I mean, come on, Clint. You're tougher than that, right?" The jab sparked a mix of laughs and gasps, but it also lit a fuse. Another audience member stood, a man in a veteran's cap, his voice booming. "Jimmy, you crossed a line. Clint's fighting for us. What are you fighting for?" The crowd erupted, some cheering the vet, others shouting for Kimmel to respond. Kimmel stood, his face tight, his voice rising. "I'm fighting for this show, for every person watching. You think I don't care? I care. But I'm not gonna let one guest hijack everything." The room was electric, the confrontation now spilling beyond the stage, the audience part of the fray. Kimmel paced, his hands slicing the air. "You want real? Here's real. I respect Clint, but respect goes both ways. You don't walk out on my stage and expect me to roll over." The crowd roared, his fans surging, but the veteran's words echoed, and Eastwood's absence loomed large. The cameras zoomed in, the internet ablaze with clips, and Kimmel knew the night wasn't over. Something bigger was coming, but what? The studio vibrated with raw energy, Jimmy Kimmel's words still ringing as he stood center stage, his face a mix of defiance and strain. The crowd's roar ebbed and flowed, some chanting his name, others murmuring about the veteran's challenge, and Clint Eastwood's dramatic exit. The cameras, relentless, captured every bead of sweat on Kimmel's brow as he paced, his hands clenched. "All right," he said, his voice steady but taut. "We're not done here. This is my show, and I'm not letting it end like this." The audience leaned in, sensing a turning point. The internet already churning with reactions, X posts exploding with shock. Kimmel fights back. Kimmel stopped pacing, facing the crowd, his eyes scanning the sea of faces. "You know, I heard that veteran's loud and clear." I heard Clint. "And yeah, maybe I pushed too hard for laughs. But this show? It's about connection. It's about all of us, vets, fans, everyone." The room quieted, his sincerity cutting through the chaos. He gestured to the empty chair where Eastwood had sat. "Clint walked out, and that's his call. But I'm still here, and I'm gonna finish what we started." A ripple of applause grew, his fans rallying, though some sat back, arms crossed, waiting to see where this led. He sat, leaning into the mic, his tone softer but firm. "Let's talk about the long shadow. Not as a bit, not as a prop, but for real. Clint's film is about soldiers, their families, the weight they carry. It's heavy, and it deserves respect." The crowd clapped, the veteran in the cap nodding slowly, his expression softening. Kimmel continued, his voice gaining strength. "I goof around, sure, that's my job. But I know what matters. I've had vets on this show, families who've lost people. I don't take that lightly." The room was with him now, the divide narrowing as he owned the moment. But the tension wasn't gone. A woman in the audience stood, her voice sharp. "Then why'd you push Clint so hard, Jimmy? You made it a circus." The crowd murmured, heads turning. Kimmel didn't flinch, meeting her gaze. "You're right. I pushed. I thought I was, giving you what you wanted. Fun, laughs. But I misread the room. I misread Clint." He paused, his voice dropping. "And for that, I'm sorry." The admission hung heavy, the crowd stunned into silence, then erupting in applause, even from Eastwood's supporters. The cameras zoomed in, capturing a raw, unscripted moment that would dominate online chatter for days. Kimmel leaned back, his grin returning but softer, humbler. "Here's the thing. Clint and I? We're different. He's got his truth. I've got mine. But we both want to reach you. So let's do that." He turned to the screen, cueing another clip from The Long Shadow, this time a quiet scene of a soldier writing a letter home. As it played, the room was still, the weight of the story sinking in. When it ended, the applause was unanimous, heartfelt, bridging the night's divides. He stood, walking to the stage's edge, his voice clear. "Clint's film is out next week. Go see it. Not because he was here, not because we fought, but because it's real. It's worth your time." The crowd cheered, the veterans standing to clap, a gesture Kimmel returned with a nod. "And yeah," he added, his old spark flickering, "maybe I'll stick to jokes next time, or not." The room laughed, the tension finally breaking, the night finding its footing. As the band kicked in, Kimmel waved to the crowd, his face a mix of relief and resolve. Backstage, producers exhaled. The internet shifted from outrage to admiration, praising Kimmel's recovery. X posts now lauded his apology, his pivot to honor the film, and the veteran's role in grounding the chaos. The confrontation, once a firestorm, became a story of redemption, of two icons clashing but leaving room for respect. Kimmel took his final bow, the lights dimmed, and the crowd left buzzing, not with division, but with a shared sense of something real, something earned. The show was over, the story complete, and the night belonged to everyone.